Hello, everyone. I would love to know if I'm being heard. I'm assuming that we're being heard. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining me for, our talk this evening, talking to parents and estate planning. I hope that, those of us who decided to join will learn something or have your questions answered, and that it will be a fruitful session. So today, I'm being joined by some wonderful people. And as they come up, we are going to be talking to each one and meeting them. And to kind of just get things going, I want to tell you a little bit about Will and Tomorrow. So, Will and Tomorrow is a brand new startup based here in Jamaica. And we want to talk to people about estate planning. And estate planning is really making um, making a decided plan, putting uh, a strategy in place for what happens to the things that you own when you're no longer around. It's about making sure that you've said that what you have amassed while you're alive, you are distributing them to the persons that you want them to get. Now, wills are part of estate planning documents, and there are other kinds of estate planning documents. And in today's session, we want to talk to parents about what are they thinking about when it comes on to the importance of doing estate planning. And hopefully, we will be able to answer some questions and clear up some misconceptions. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to demonstrate to anyone, particularly parents, that making a plan for your family, for those that you care about, is something that takes no sweat, and it's something that has a lot of reward. Now, the afternoon or this evening, we're going to be talking to three individuals, and I'm going to be the person taking us through that experience. And I just wanted to start off really briefly by introducing you to Will and Tomorrow. Now, Will and Tomorrow is an online platform, right? And the fact that we're online means that we're able to take advantage of the the technology and the conveniences of having an online platform. And starting out with Will and Tomorrow is really easy. I'm going to show you what our homepage looks like, um, so that you can know exactly what it's like to start out with Will and Tomorrow. If you go to our domain, which is www.willandtomorrow.com, you should see something looking like this, where we invite you to write your will right now. And if it's your first time, you're going to click on the link to register. And then from there, you're taken through a series of qualifying questions. And from there, you are made to sign up and create your account. All right. Then, after that, you've created an account. You probably want to take a step back and think about how it is that I prepare to write a will. Preparing to write a will, as far as we're concerned, is about thinking about different parts of the will. Who do you want your executor to be? Who are your guardians? Who do you want those people to be? Who are your beneficiaries that you want to be in your will? What are the assets that you're going to be including? Do you want to include final arrangements? So sitting down with yourself, having a thought, having a think about these things, making a note of them in our prep list, which is available on our website at www.willandtomorrow.com/prep list. And these are some of the ways that you can start the process of thinking about what you're going to include in your will. I'm going to pause right now because what I want to do is to introduce you to the platform. But more than that, I want to introduce my first guest. My first guest is Miss Shadecia Hamilton. She loves children. She's trained in a lot of different things, but primarily she works with children in her psychology kind of practice, and she also works as an attorney at law. All right, I'm going to do this, do this, and hopefully we're live. Hi, Shadicia.
Hi, good evening, Andre. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I am pretty excited that you've been able to make the time, So I'm going to jump right into it. The first thing that I want to do is to ask you, what is a will? We're talking to parents today about estate planning, and Will and Tomorrow is in this exciting space of helping people to understand estate planning better. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is a will?
All right. Thank you for that question, Andre. Interestingly, a will is a document. Will can be oral as well, but in most cases, wills are written. So it's a written document, and it's a legal document that gives effect to a person's desires after they have departed this life. So once somebody has acquired something in life and they would want their assets to be shared among friends or family, once they record that particular information and accord the assets to an individual, that is called a will. So simply put, just a document that speaks to how your assets should be shared after death.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So this document that says I want my assets to be shared in this way. Can it be used to protect minor children particularly? One, can it be used to do that? And how does a will do that?
All right. So very importantly, wills can protect minor children, and it ought to protect minor children because many times parents die before their children have attained the age of majority, which is 18 years of age. And
Got it.
so what this document does, it allows for the appointment of particular personnel who will be able to say, all right, this is what your mother or your father wanted for you, and so I'm going to hold it in trust for you until they until you have attained a certain age, because you know that in Jamaica, until you have acquired the age of majority, there is almost very little you can do legally. So the will protects the child in that once the child is below the age of majority, the assets are still stored up for them so that they will have it when they are older.
I like that. So minor children have that provision when you say in your will that you want someone to hold whatever you're leaving for them, this part of the house or the money in the accounts. You're saying that you want it to go to your child, and the will be a way of saying that you hold this, and then when the person gets of age, they are able to acquire it. Now, tell me about how it protects or what a will does if your children aren't minors. What does the will do in that situation for parents?
All right. So just to backtrack a little bit, until you have attained the age of majority, you're able to treat with whatever gift was left to you in the will, whatever device there was. But once you have attained the age of majority, the will asks for somebody that is called an executor if the person is a male, or an executrix if it's a female. And what that person does, that person is responsible for giving effect to the will. And what that simply means is that whatever you have recorded in the will, so in the event that you say, I want Andre to have my house, the person is going to go through a legal process that is called probating of the will, which is proving the will to make sure it's valid. And then the legal responsibility is now on that person to distribute the gifts in the will to the beneficiaries. That's the persons who are supposed to get what the will has said. So the adult child, as opposed to the minor child, is able to benefit in a shorter time, because once the will is probated, then those assets will be given to them according to the will. It is important, Andre, at this point that I interject in my little discourse here to say how important it is for people to understand that not because your name has been ascribed to a particular gift means you're going to get it. When a person dies, the assets that are still belonging to the person and whatever money that has been accumulated, the liabilities of the estate have to be cleared off. So the funeral expenses and whatever debt was owed by the deceased has to be cleared off. So in a lot of situations, your name is assigned to get a house or a car, but that money had to be used to clear off some of the debt, and so you may not benefit as the adult child from the will. But in the normal pace of things, the adult child is able to benefit more readily within a few months, as opposed to the minor child. Unless, of course, the minor child is 17 and a half.
I understand. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario. Okay, thank you for that. I liked also that you're saying that, okay, a parent might write a will and indicate that they're leaving X amount of dollars for their big son, who's an adult. And the usual case would be, or a normal thing would be, as soon as the will is probated, that adult child can get the amount of money that was left. But if the costs associated with this person's estate, their funeral expenses, all the other things that you've talked about, if they need to be, if clearing those mean pulling on some of the money that was earmarked for this adult child, it might cause the amount to change or the gift to be different in some way. So it's really what is left back after expenses
And
that
all the right.
can now
Very good.
can now be distributed. All
Yes.
right. I wanted to ask you a question as someone who is concerned with the well-being of children and their parents. What sort of benefits do you think making a will has for parents and maybe even children who are, old enough to know that their parents have made a will, and if it's something that their parents want to engage them in conversation about? What do you think are some of the benefits? We talked about protecting and some of those kinds of benefits, but what other benefits are there? Why is it that people should be thinking about it now?
So Jamaica is a very dynamic place in relation to our religious persuasions. So you have a significant part of our population that is persuaded into thinking that after death there's an afterlife, and you're able to integrally affect what is happening with those who are living. And then you have another part of the population who believes that once you die, then that is the end of it. So I'll address those that think once you die, that's the end of it first. Now, if you are of that religious belief that when you die, that's the end, you know nothing, it is always good to die in peace. That's something that we advocate. I mean, death in and of itself is very, very scary, and your relatives who have to deal with the aftermath of death, it is psychologically taxing. And children, unfortunately, have to deal with the loss of parents and relatives. And leading up to the death, it's very, very traumatic, and it affects children in various ways, in their school, in their social life, and so on. No, that in and of itself is disheartening. But when your parent has died and you're unable to benefit now, there is no, your mommy left the house and then all of a sudden you're evicted from the house, or they left a vehicle and you're not able to sell. The vehicle cannot be sold for you to provide for your education. And so that takes a different psychological toll. And it manifests itself in so many um deviant ways. It sometimes it's alarming to see just how large an effect these situations have on children. So when a will is created, it aids the testator, if it's a male, or testatrix, in that that person dies with the peace, the assurance that everything that I've acquired in life, it is going to go to who I want it to go to. So, I mean, many of us have had the experience of going to funerals and there's a big fight over deadlift. And so that in and of itself creates a lot of stress. So the testator and or the testatrix, they're able to die with that assurance that I have worked for this house and it's for my one son or it's for my two children to be shared equally. and that gives an assurance. The
Mm.
child who remains is also able to enjoy the confidence that within a few months or within a few years that the seed of the labor of my mother, the labor of my father, their blood and sweat, I'm able to benefit, and that gives pride and joy for children, and so they're able to live comfortably or even to assist, and also they're able to focus on other areas of their lives as opposed to not having somewhere to live or not having a vehicle. That is how it affects children in that way. Now, for those who believe that when you die you still play an active part, then we know, based on what we have heard and stories, that the duppy is upset and the duppy can't rest in peace because the duppy now is viewing the fightings, the infightings of the children. And if you're from the country, they say duppy box you. So it's always important that when our love, the sanctity that's associated with the dead, when our loved ones die, we want them to be able to rest in peace. And they are not able to rest in peace if everybody's fighting over the land or the house or the car. So the dead will be able to rest in peace. And of course, most assuredly, those who are alive, there will be no added animosity created between siblings and family members, and there'll be cohesion because everybody says, okay, daddy work for this or grandpa work for this, and he said, I must have it, and he respect me enough to give me this, and he has respected my sister enough to give her that. And so there's a unity in the family going forward to achieve much more and being beneficial in society.
I love those. I love that answer. I loved everything about it because I came into this conversation knowing that making a will does provide you with peace of mind, and you've expounded on that to talk about, it also avoids the contention over dead left for families, and depending on just your belief, it could also posthumously give peace of mind to the person who has made their will. All right. I'm going to take a break from interviewing you, Shadecia, unless you had any other thoughts on anything pertaining to estate planning and parenting, any other comment that you thought you would have wanted to interject here.
Just to say, making a will is very, very important. When you have sacrificed your blood, your sweat, your tears, sleepless nights, and I mean, you have given your all to achieving it, is very, very important that the people who inherit that are people who are able to appreciate your hard work, and they won't just come because they didn't work for it and just squander all your resources. So it's very important that you make a will and that you ensure that the people to whom you have bestowed gifts, they are people who are responsible, they're respectful of your efforts, and also appreciative of what you have given unto them. There's one thing I also want to say about making a will and with the man and children, the trustees. We have to bear in mind that the fluidity and the dynamism of life, none of us can be assured of tomorrow. So even though you may appoint a trustee or a guardian to hold and trust whatever gifts you're giving to your minor children, it's important to think about in the event that that person dies, what is going to happen. So try to find people who are of a trustworthy character, who you know won't be deceitful and swindle your children or your beneficiaries out of your hard earned assets, but there are people who will disperse the gifts according to your intentions. And of course, if you need help in writing your will, they can always come to you, Andre, who really has been now acclaimed as a master in this will era.
You talk jokes. Thank you, Shadecia. Thank you for your comments. Please stick around in case there's anybody who has any questions when we get to that point. But thank you very much. I am going to ask someone who has used the Will and Tomorrow platform to do the very thing that Shadecia and I were talking about. I'm going to ask Kristofferson Nunes to join me now, and we're going to have a quick little talk about some of the things that he considers to be important. All right. Hey, Chris, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. You hear me? All right, Andre.
I'm hearing you great, and I'm seeing you as
All
well.
right,
Good
great.
to have you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you for having me. Really, I really appreciate it again. To speak about my experience. So I don't mind being here. So thanks again.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit. So, you're Kristofferson Nunes. How do you introduce yourself typically?
Chris, generally, Chris. Really, that's it. Because some people try to get tongue tied when they say Kristofferson. Some people say, "Hey, Lavina Calf's dad" or "Elsie's dad." So it really depends.
So, wait, so you're telling me now that your identity has taken on this dimension of being your son's father. Well,
Literally,
how
like
do you feel about that?
they don't call me Chris. They call me, "Hey, that's the guys on the internet's father or Elsie's dad." So it's really funny.
That is something, and I like that because we're talking about parents and estate planning. We just
Yeah,
spoke to someone who's an attorney, and kind of, you know, just lay the foundation. What are wills? How do they protect minor children and even older children? And what are the benefits of making a will? And I
okay.
wanted to ask you, what made you decide to make a will at the point that you did? Tell us a little bit about like how long you've been a parent and what made you decide to make a will when you did.
Okay, so like I feel like being a parent for me, like just quickly thrust me into like more responsibility, more maturity. Like I even feel myself, like living up as an adult, like unknowingly, just being more responsive, be more aware, and just certain priorities, went up, and certain things just came off the table fully, without even thinking about it. And then for me, immediately, um, what made me like click in terms of having a will, one of my close friends passed on, and he was a father that kind of mentored me as a new father coming in into this parenting game, right? So he was always sharing philosophy and stoicism and thinking about planning ahead, but also living in the moment. So practical things, hey, like having a will, like for example, I always preach about generational wealth. So things like having a will is like, hey, putting your actions to where your mouth is. Really, you can't just saying one thing and not doing the other. So it's just going through the steps and ticking off how I want to be more of a better parent, and then leaving and just leading by my own actions, right? So I wouldn't want to be a case where I'm saying these things and not doing the other. So
Mm.
for me, it's just really matching my actions and my ambitions together as I go along and as I grow and kind of develop myself as a parent. And that's really how I'm thinking about this journey. So yeah.
I like that. And you brought up this concept of generational wealth. How do you break that down for someone who may not use those words to describe this idea of taking care of, you know, who's come from your line?
Yeah.
What does it mean? What do you how are you applying it in your life?
For me, naturally people think about the finances, right? Think about the money they want to pass on, all the work they put in like a 9 to 5, and they get to their pension, they're getting their benefits, and they want to know, hey, maybe my kids can live off this in terms of supplementing them with some income streams, whether they pass on abruptly or not. For me, it includes all of that plus more. It includes passing on knowledge or passing on experiences and building a community. Um, so naturally, I'm looking on my way of generational with pen to paper is, hey, how can I segment these things as I grow older? One of the main ways to segment, from a financial standpoint, was doing a will. Because people are very tricky with money, especially family, especially friends. So you want to have things in writing, and having thing in writing, set the precedence in terms of, hey, you were a sound mind, you're very clear of what you did in terms of doing this, and say, hey, I'm a mature candidate. Say these are my plans henceforth, and these are the responsibility persons are leaving charge. Say, hey, execute on my behalf. So it's just looking on anything can happen. Life is short. Um, and from a stoic point perspective, they also say, hey, life is but a point, but you still in a small life have big moments. So why not plan for those big moments? Why not protect those big moments? Why not safeguard those big moments? Because for me, having as cliche it sounds, having a child change the whole world, but thinking about changing my whole world made him my world in itself, and I want to protect that. I want to nurture that. I want to create a family that supports that, regardless I'm here or not. So setting certain cultures and habits and certain foundations. Say, hey, they're in no sense, shape, or form based off your absence can be deprived of. You know?
Mhm. I like that. I like that a lot, Chris. So you're saying to us that your thoughts around generational wealth is rooted in having your life changed by becoming a parent and
Mm-hmm.
having other things becoming very important to you.
Yeah.
And it's now about making sure that with what you have available to you, like making a will and the interactions that you have with your son, these are all the things that you are adding up to transfer your your way of going about life to the next
Yeah.
generation. And that's
Definitely.
beautiful.
So even things like habits and behaviors, and I think these things are important too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Lastly, what was it like to use Will and Tomorrow to make your own will?
Um, I can share, my expectation and my reality. So, for example, the thought of doing a will was it seemed tedious, getting a lawyer and sitting down and talking about the finances and putting everything together. However, when I saw Will and Tomorrow represented to me, I was shocked at how simple everything made, you know, from simplifying and automating everything from, saving the document to come back to following up from your team, from even the level of, different FAQs where you have and say, hey, these are the things you need to have. Um, and it just helped, based on the question, it just helped make everything simple. Like, and then the after effect of receiving it and the process of, hey, signing the documents of two witnesses. That was a new part for me I didn't know about. So it's almost educational, because I end up automatically telling my friends who are new fathers, who are considering, jumping off the gelding truck, to hey, have you guys ever thought of will? And this should be a platform to consider. Regardless, it may seem tedious mentally, but this from a technological standpoint, streamline the whole process. It made me feel comfortable, made me feel more confident that I'm, taking charge and being more responsible, using technology in the same breath. So I would just big up again, Andre. Like, I really respect the platform itself and what it can offer.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on generational wealth, what it means to be a new parent, and making a will. Um, did you? This is not one of the questions that I shared, but it just came to me. Were there any was there, I know you may have spoken to, your expectation was that making a will would be tedious and it would be something that would require all these various steps.
Yeah.
But apart from the steps and the process part of it, was there any mental component, any mind shift kind of change that somebody may need to make when it comes to actually making a will?
I think making the will. I think from a traditional standpoint, somebody may say, "Hey, I need to write this over and over again and update it and do the same old procedure." But with your platform, especially tech driven, it's just a simple edit to a field, and it seems so comfortable. And anything from a life changing moment, maybe you don't have the time to really write down, but you do have the time to just edit a field on the website based off what is new. Maybe it could be a promotion or a new car. It could be a certain life change in the family. Maybe you get a son or a daughter. Anything can happen, or a loss in the family or any change. Maybe you win the lotto. So how you want to kind of incorporate that, and you're not thinking too heavily, but also you're having the ease of technology to kind of do it and pull through. So yeah, like for us, I think that was a major thing, like the edit perspective, being to able to go back and update your will nonetheless. Yeah.
I like that. And just as a note, I do want to point out that if you've written your will and you've printed it and you've had it witnessed, and then you decide to make a change that you want to make, you have to. It's not as simple. It's the process. It involves re-signing the document so that you
Yeah.
have a new version of it. So
Unless you don't
so
have to write over everything, so you know what I mean.
exactly, exactly. All right, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing your points of view on, your experience using Will and Tomorrow as a new parent. And please stick around so that if there's anybody who has any questions for us, you can be with us for that point as
All right,
well.
no problem.
Awesome. Cool. So the last person that I want to talk to on camera this evening before the four of us come back on is also a Will and Tomorrow member, someone who used Will and Tomorrow to make their own will and also a parent. So Sade, I'm going to bring you up now. Um, Hi.
Hi,
Yeah. How are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. I am my first time doing one of these lives. I decided at one point that it's gonna be, relaxed. We're gonna probably have some glitches, and we're going to make it conversational, and we're gonna have fun. And so far, what's encouraging to me is that when someone comes across this YouTube video at some point in the future, or the people who are watching know and they are parents themselves or they know someone who's a parent and might have been thinking about making a will, that they can listen to Chris's story and now listen to your story and just get one thought or one new idea or be convinced in some way or have one sort of contemplation that helps them. And so that's why I'm having fun, knowing that we're doing a good thing, one person at a time, because that's how things get started. So, Shade, you've been someone that has been very encouraging to Will and Tomorrow, and I appreciate that. And so, when we asked you if you could come on and answer a few questions on the live, you agreed. And I wanted to just get started by asking you, what made you decide to make a will at the point that you did?
So I think unlike a lot of people, I was in the market for a will. So I actually had a will on my to-do list literally for years. And I just couldn't identify what the best way to do it. You know, you have the kind of pharmacy variety wheels, which I no, that was not it for me. You know, where you can just kind of go into the pharmacy and grab this piece of paper and call it a will. And I just didn't feel comfortable that, my blood, sweat, and tears should be written down on the pharmacy paper, that would constitute a proper will. And I had looked at even some overseas platforms. I explored going through a lawyer, but that was just really very expensive. Um, so when I saw Will and Tomorrow, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's a great platform. It's a Jamaican run platform, so that was really just it all came together great. The pricing is very competitive, so um, for me, I was kind of looking, and it made the decision very easy. So as you would have mentioned, I'm also a mom. I have an amazing 8-year-old, and I want to be able to. The good word tells us, a good man leaves a legacy for his children's children. So I definitely want to do that. I work hard. I want to make sure that not just in my lifetime I'm benefiting, but that my child can benefit, and maybe her children too, because we want everybody rich and happy.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I mean, there's some people that I meet now that I'm in this world that are in the market for a will. I called someone today, um, and she said, "Oh, it's a pity." I called her for help, and I told her what we're working on. I said, "Oh, it's a pity. I didn't reach out to her earlier because she is currently getting her will sorted." So there are people who are in the market for wills, and these are people that are great customers because all we have to do is show them the product and they're like, let's go. And then there are other people, a lot of parents who are busy being parents, and being a parent is not an easy job. And so stopping and taking out $9,000 out of your budget to set aside to do this might be something that requires planning, which is fine. But we're saying that Will and Tomorrow is an option for you whenever you're ready, and hopefully you're ready sooner than later.
Yeah.
Tell me something, Shade. I know you used our platform very early in its life cycle. If you were to go on our platform now some of the things that you pointed out that we need to make sure that we look at, those have been addressed, and there are even more things on our roadmap that we are looking to improve. But so, yes, there were some kinks. But tell me, what was the process like for you using the Will and Tomorrow platform itself?
So I'm happy to hear that you're still improving. But even as I reflect on my experience on the platform, it was very good. It made it very easy. It was just filling out. It didn't. The process of making a will can seem intimidating. You have all of these very um, esoteric kind of words that people use. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I didn't understand a lot of the terminologies and so on. But the platform helped him, just to ease me into it at least. And it didn't it allowed me to save, to return to it, which meant that okay, I can kind of process this, come back to it, if I'm not clear on something, or if there is something that I haven't fully thought through on my side, I still have that opportunity to step away, think through it, and come back to the platform. So it was overall a great experience for me. um, yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right, and then now, in the aftermath of using the platform, you've been delivered your package, and you can check this off your to-do list until you're ready to update it. What was it like talking to when you are talking to someone else, whether it comes up naturally or it's someone that you care about and you want to introduce this idea of talking about making a will? What are some of the common things that you see parents saying about putting this action item off, and how do you kind of counteract them, or whatever they might say that might sound like an excuse? How do you kind of counteract that whenever you come across anything
So
like that?
before I answer that question, can I talk about the package for like 10 seconds? I wish I had it here with me because I was so impressed when I got the package delivered. It was a whole experience in a little box. And I'm like, wow, my will, it was definitely not the pharmacy variety will. And it felt good to have. It felt like it added just another layer of security, of continuity for the things that I have been blessed with, the things that I have worked hard for. So I forgot about that part of the experience because I literally took a picture of it and I've been sending to people like, this my will. So that was a great part of the experience. I think,
I'm glad.
going back to your real question though, um I would say I don't know if it is that people make excuses as much as people avoid the possibility. They avoid exploring, like they avoid thinking about, okay, one day I'm gonna die. We all know that there are a few things that are certain in life, and I believe that we may not all agree on many things, but I think we all agree that death, however you conceive death to be, whether it is you know a finite or an infinite state, um, we can all agree that we die. So I think a lot of persons are avoidant around that topic, so they don't want to think about it, so they don't want to prepare for it.
Mhm.
And they for me, when I hear people with that kind of perspective, especially people with children, I try to encourage them not just to think about what they're experiencing, but imagine what your child will experience. Imagine what will happen, how your child will feel, how your child will experience the world, the trauma associated with your death, and you layer onto that, you know, they having to go through attorney general to get anything done, and taking 1,000 years, just the time and the experience, or even just, you know having someone who you are not personally comfortable with having to take responsibility for your child because you did not want to, really just man up and take that next step, make those decisions upfront for what is an inevitable
Mhm.
stage of life. Yeah, it's a tough subject. People say I'm morbid because I'm pretty comfortable. So but I just it's a part of life. And thank God for me, I don't believe that death is final. So that helps me to process it a lot. Um, but we all, whether we believe, in life beyond death, eternal life, and so on or not, I think we all agree that we all die. So we have to prepare as best we can. And I've seen experiences where just families have been pushed to some very, very terrible things because proper proper planning was not put in place for estates. And while I don't expect that to be my own experience, you want to, as much as possible, protect against those things.
Mhm.
As
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Shade, because it is a difficult subject, and a lot of times people are avoiding more than making excuses. And it's one of the things that we are working very hard at figuring out how to get people to think and to face this topic and try not to make it feel too heavy, feel too morbid, feel too sad, because it's really a part of life. And the best way to get through things that are part of life is to just face them and just get them done. So
yeah,
thank you very much for saying that. I'm going to have us do a round of wrapping up because I don't think we have any live questions. But what happened the last time? So I'm going to add back Shadecia and Kristofferson. Is that okay if I add you back to the stream now so we can tell everybody goodbye? Um, Here we
Sure, no
go.
problem.
Awesome, awesome. Hi again. All right. So this evening, right, the idea was pretty straightforward. When I communicated with each of you, I told you to ask you a few questions. And the topic of our time spent this evening is parenting, parents and estate planning. And I feel as though the way that we organized the evening by talking to Shadecia and asking her questions about what's a will, how to protect parents and children, and then hearing from Chris, who like to talk about generational wealth, and then talking to Sade, who was an early user of Will and Tomorrow, was impressed with our packaging and finds that talking to people about making a will is is something that you have to be comfortable with, and that depending on who you're talking to, you
Mm,
might just realize that it's not that they don't want to do it, but the more education we can have around the topic, the better it is.
yeah.
So when we don't have any questions live, if there's anything else that somebody online now wants to share, someone is typing, can we try to avoid that the feedback? All right. Is there anybody on the panel who had any last thoughts, wanted to share anything? If not, I'll tell you thank you and wish you good night.
All right. Good night.
all right,
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you too. All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.